I've got all the van doors open and everything because everything's drying off. It's done nothing but rain since we got here, so we're just drying everything out. We're actually here at the fantastic Lindholm Lakes complex. We've been staying here on site in this lovely lodge, as you can see. Very nice, warm, cosy. It's been a fantastic place to stay. There are so many lakes on the complex. You know, when you're here for a few days, you've got a really nice variety of places to fish. These lodges have got their own pegs. These lads have just kicked off. Morning, lads.
Morning.
Morning. What's at stake today? Is it money or bragging rights or both?
Bit of both, really.
These lads are fishing here today. I'm not going to be fishing this lake today. I will be having a day on here, possibly tomorrow, and that's because today we're going to be fishing one of the other lakes at the other side of the complex. Yesterday we fished on Loco. I'll put a link above to that session. That was a brilliant session with the pellet waggler and on the method feeder. But today we're just going to go and get some breakfast now at the on-site cafe, and then we're going to head on over to the other side of the complex where we're possibly going to fish either BENNYS or beaches. Well, the lake that we are fishing today is known as BENNYS. There are loads of F1s in this lake. It's a lake I've never fished before. So I'm going to be fishing with a pole. I'm going to try and catch some fish up in the water. I've got a rig set about that deep. I'm just going to keep flicking pellets in and just see what we can catch. We might have to mess around with the depth to find the right depth to catch the fish at. And then I'm going to be fishing down the margin later on with a little pellet feeder. But I'm going to be priming that line for the second part of the session. So I'm only going to be fishing where I can feed with my left hand. Just keep trickling those pellets in, and hopefully we're going to have a few of those F1s queuing up, waiting for that hard banded pellet. Now, I'll openly admit that what little I know about this lake, I think 4mm pellets would be best to feed. And I know that's what a lot of people use on here. However, I'm going to use 6mm. I just want to see if it's going to attract a better stamp of fish. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, I don't know. So I'm going to be feeding hard 6mm pellets, all right, just by hand. And I'm going to be using a 6mm pellet actually on a band as well. I've got size 16 hook on. I'll show you the rig in a little while when we get going. But it's just a hard banded pellet. I'm just going to keep flicking the rig over, keep trickling pellets in where I can loose feed them at about 6 meters. The sun's just gone in, the clouds are coming. There were fish crashing everywhere this morning when we got here, but it's just gone a little bit quiet now. So we're just going to keep those pellets trickling in, and hopefully we can attract a few fish. That's the first sign anyway, so I've been fishing about 5 minutes, been trickling those pellets in. That was the first indication, so just going to keep them pellets going in. If we've got to mess around with the depths, then we obviously can do. I'll show you the rig in a minute and the elastic and that sort of thing. Just gone a little bit deeper, and this is the first fish. There are fish topping, and you know, I've been fishing about 1.5 foot, something like that, and I've had a couple of quick bites, but this is the first one that I've hooked, just a little bit deeper. Like I say, I'll show you the rig in a minute. This is number well, it's the orange slick that I'm using. I control that fish, decent F1 actually, a bit bigger than I thought. So that's first cast, having gone a little bit deeper, so we'll find out if that's the best depth to be at. Quite a good fish that one, I didn't expect one as thick as that. Really thick fish, lovely. Just get that pellet out, and I'll show you the rig. Keep them pellets going in. Keep rattling, making that noise. That's all I've got. usual simple rig. It's a 4-inch hook length. Okay, these are the ready tied hook lengths that I'm using. I haven't used these before because, well, I have used them, but on the method feeder. I haven't used them on the pole. That's part of what today's session is about. So they're ready tied hook lengths, the matrix ones. I've then got just a single shot, so there's no stot on this, just a shot which I'm experimenting with. I don't know if it makes any difference from it being a stot. I do like stots because they stay on the line much better, especially when you're catching fish. And then I've just got a nice little dibber, simple as that. I thought the fish would be really shallow, and that's why I've selected a dibber. And then that length between the float and the actual dacron will change, obviously, as I'm moving the float up and down. And if I find an optimum depth, then I can obviously shorten that, which might mean I hook more fish. I haven't got loads of top kits set up today for this. If I was going to fish a match here like this, I'd have several top kits with rigs set up at different depths. And that's just the orange slick. So that's the depth that I've caught at. So I'm going to find out now, see if that is the optimum depth that's going to be best for catching. Yeah, so that's 2 in 2 at that depth now. I can shorten that length between the dacron and the float if need be. Another F1. A little bit smaller, that one. A lovely fish, especially if they keep coming every cast. That's how you can really rack up a good weight. And keep those pellets going in, but I am feeding this margin line with little nuggets of micros for the second part. And all that is basically nuggets like that, no ground bait or anything. Nice little nuggets of pellets, and they're just going down that margin for later on. Just trying to find the best feeding pattern. Sometimes you can get away with hardly feeding anything, you know, you're almost starving them onto the hook. I'm definitely no expert at this sort of fishing, but I know about how they feed, and sometimes you can get away with feeding virtually nothing. However, up to now, I'm actually having to feed. I'm having to put some pellets in, feeding 2 or 3 times, and then going a few seconds without feeding, and then flicking the rig in and just picking off fish that way. And that might, you know, when it's like that, you might not even work it out for the rest of the day, you know. Sometimes you have spells of fish, and sometimes they might want to feed differently. I mean, there's fish top in there now, so there are some fish here now. Just got to try and see if we can get one every cast, and then we know we're doing it right. That's a proper fish, that one. Get that one. Get that one, that's the biggest one so far today. Beautiful fish. However, it's not quite working. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I virtually never fish like this. There are fish there. I know there are fish there, but they're outsmarting me at the minute. The pellets don't seem quite right. Maybe the 4 mils would have been much, much better, as I suspected. I've had a few fish, but I think I should be catching more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a switch. I'm going to switch to maggots. I've got loads of live red maggots here. I'm going to start feeding them. I'm going to come back a metre as well, because I think I can catch a little bit closer. There are fish topping everywhere, so I'm going to switch to maggots. I might start catching small fish. That could be a problem. That's what happens on some venues. However, if there are that many F1s there, they may prefer the maggots. So we won't know unless we try it. So I'm just going to keep feeding them by hand, but I'm going to come back a metre. And all I'm going to do is just simply cut the band off that same size 16 hook. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to band the maggots. I'm just going to hook a single maggot on the hook as normal through the pointy end, just so it leaves lots of the hook exposed, like that. Like I say, small fish might be a problem, I don't know, I've never fished on here before, but I guess we'll find out. All right, okay then. Got one first cast. Keep them maggots going in. I've got a good two and a half pints maybe. I can really keep them going in. One. There we go. And obviously if you can catch them shorter, that's going to make it even quicker. Planes are going over again. There's been loads of planes recently. Can't quite hold on to that one. Still fighting. There we go. I don't want this to be a hook a duck session. You know, I don't do this fishing very often, but it's just going to be nice to see if we can get them lined up before we go down this margin and see if we can catch some bigger fish. That's a much better reaction with maggots, much better. Just missed a couple of bites, so that depth might not be quite right. And plus I'm not quite sure what to feed yet. You know, what sort of quantity. Another F1. I'll just keep them maggots going in, keep the fish there, and then the rest we've got to work out while we're fishing it. Lovely stamp of fish though, fantastic, real weight builders. We're just going to keep them maggots going in, and the challenge now is to get one every cast. It's a smaller fish, that one. Don't need to break down now, I don't think. No need to unship when you're catching like this. You can get your rolls positioned in a position where you can just ship straight back. That'll obviously make the whole process much quicker and much smoother. You've got to feed enough to keep them there, but you don't want to feed too much so that there's not much competition for the hook bait. That's the thing with F1 fishing, even when we're feeder fishing. Just feed enough to keep them there, but then you still want to be able to compete for your hook bait. Otherwise you can end up missing bites and all sorts. It definitely seems to be working now. I think I'm going to have 5 or 10 more drop-ins with this, see if we can catch one every single cast. And if that is the case, then I'm going to have a look down this margin with a pellet feeder and see if we can pick out some better fish. Well, I've lost count of how many fish we've had on that now, but it literally is one a bung now on the maggot. So, you know, maybe there was a better way of catching the fish on those pellets shallow. I don't know if there was. I didn't work it out, and maybe the 4mm pellets would have been, you know, would have made a big difference. But I've switched to maggot, and that's what's transformed it. So that was good to try. I'm glad I tried it now. So it's literally a fish a cast on that line now with maggot, just single maggot, hooked on the 16. It's an MXC 3 hook, I think it is, just hooking the maggot on normally. it's really enjoyable fishing. If it was a match, it would be a case of getting your head down and throwing some fish in the net. Now it's time to try this margin line. Now I don't know if we're going to catch any bigger fish. I've been priming this line just down here to my left for just over an hour. I've been putting those little nuggets of micro pellets in, just squeezing, slightly over wetted so they're nice and sticky, and I've just been putting those in just down to my left, about 5 or 6 meters down the side of these reeds. So I've seen 1 or 2 of the reeds moving. We are expecting the fish to consider spawning any time now, so that could be a sign of that. But I'm going to fish this with a little pellet feeder. I'll show you the rig. It's a really simple setup, but it's one that obviously needs to be strong in case there are going to be some big edge dwellers down there. So hopefully we're going to get a good reaction. Just got the 6mm hard banded pellet as hook bait. Nice and simple, really durable as well. So when there's lots of fish down there, you know, they're knocking the bait everywhere, they're not going to knock that hook bait off. And then all I'm doing is putting a few pellets in the feeder. I don't know how many pellets are in there, probably 25, 30. Pressing the hook bait in and then putting some pellets over the top of it. These pellets are a little bit wetter than normal, as you can see. It's a lovely little feeder packed with feed for them. I'm just dropping that about half a metre off those reeds. And it's been far better to leave a slack line. With a tight line, all what's happening is the fish are getting hooked up on it, because there are fish up in the water coming in and out of the peg. They're getting hooked up on the line, and that's dislodging the feeder, and you're obviously getting lots of indications on the tip. I pulled out of 2 fish that have been foul hooked anyway. So by slack lining, it just means that you're encouraging that line to go down onto the bottom and hopefully stay out of the way of fish moving in and out of the peg. And because it's a self-hooking rig, the fish are on, so there's no mistaking the bite, just like that. They just hook themselves. Another F1. Beautiful fish. I honestly think what happened was, because I've been priming the peg with little nuggets of pellets whilst I was fishing the pole line with little nuggets like that, I think I must have just been feeding too much. When I first got on this line, I've been having lots of indications, but now I'm not feeding with those nuggets. I'm not feeding quite as much. The only bit of bait what's going in is the bait that's actually in this feeder. And the beauty with these feeders is, or this style of feeder, is that there's only one way into the pellets. As you can see, it's sideways on. When a fish comes in, it's got to suck there to get the pellets out, and that's right where your hook bait is. Your hook bait is right there, so it's inevitable that your hook bait's got to get sucked in. And once it gets sucked in, assuming your hair rig and everything's working properly, the fish should hook itself. I've been asked quite a few times why I prefer to fish like this over fishing the pole. Well, there are times when this can outfish the pole. One of the things is, when you're feeding with a pole line, it's easy to put too much feed in and get too many fish in your peg, and that can lead to all sorts of problems, line bites and that sort of thing, fish coming up off the bottom and that sort of thing. With a feeder like this, your line is kind of down on the bottom, out of the way. You can leave a nice big slack line like I'm doing today, and you can virtually ignore the line bites, you know, and just wait for positive pulls where the whole rod goes. But when, you know, you're actually making sure you know when the fish has hooked itself. The other advantage is, increasingly more on fisheries these days, the fish are getting bigger and bigger, and on some venues that I fish, you know, it's quite common to get a 20-pound carp or to hook one. And when you're hooking these margin fish on a rod and reel setup, then you know, with those bigger fish, it can actually give you a better chance of landing any huge fish like that as well. You know, sometimes they're easier to land on a rod and line than what they would be on a pole setup. So that's another advantage. Really positive pull again. Really working efficiently now. It's only in there for a minute and a half, 2 minutes really, and then it's a proper pull. Much cleaner, you know, not getting line bites like we were earlier. Really energetic hand size F1s. Beautiful. Well, I've just had 3 or 4 fish down that margin, which is great. I got some line bites earlier on. There were some fish milling about, but I think they were up in the water. But now a few pellets have gone in. I'm fishing the smallest size pellet feeder because I don't want to feed too much. You know what it's like with F1s, it's quite easy to blow your peg up and have too many fish there. I'm just fishing a 6mm hard banded pellet. It looks like they've settled down on that feed now. So, and as you've seen, the bites are quite aggressive. So I'm gonna see if I can catch a few more before the end of the session. Well, it's clear to see that this lake is absolutely stuffed with fish. However, we start to ring some changes to keep the fish coming. Change from pellets to maggots, and then down that margin I've just had to kind of slow things down, but it's absolutely solid with fish now. I can see how they get the great weights here. There is a lake next to this which is Loco. I did film a session video there a few days ago, so if you didn't see that, then I'll put the link at the end of this video to that video for you. I did a little bit of pellet waggler fishing and some method feeder fishing short as well. Caught some big fish in that as well, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. Hope you've enjoyed this insight into this incredible fishery. It's absolutely stuffed with fish. Dad has fished next to me as well, and he's been catching fish as well, so it's been a thoroughly enjoyable session at a fantastic venue. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you next time.